Cornerstone blogs help drive qualified traffic to your website. So the more specific that you can be within the main topics of that broad topic, the more Google will understand your content and be able to show it to the right people. So I kind of view it as you're taking your users on a journey of your website through this Cornerstone blog from all the links that you include within it. So it provides a better user experience because everything that they could possibly need to know about this topic and more is right there for them.
You're listening to the Take Your Shot podcast, a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers looking to grow and scale their business. I'm your host, Hallie Heather, and my goal is for you to walk away feeling empowered and inspired as you continue to build a business that you're passionate about and that serves both you and your clients well. So whether you're operating as a side hustle or you're looking for tips and tricks on how to improve and scale your business, you, my friend, are in the right place. You don't have to figure it all out on your own, and I'm so glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Today I've got Eden Sloboth, and Eden is an SEO expert and blog writer, and she has so much wisdom to share with us today. So Eden, welcome aboard. Do you mind introducing yourself and telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Eden, and I am the founder of Maven Made Copy, and I write blog articles. And
so let's talk about that a little bit. So creative entrepreneurs, what types of creatives do you like working with? Like, what has been your journey to like getting to where you are now?
Oh man. So I like to work with so many different kinds of people. I've worked with wedding photographers and branding experts and web designers and even retail shops. So a lot of different spaces, a lot of different industries. And I love expanding my own knowledge, honestly. When I'm researching these blogs, I learn so much about all different kinds of things. So that's what I love doing. And I love helping entrepreneurs too with their content strategy and even helping them use their blogs to repurpose content for other platforms.
Yes, I think that is so great, that especially that last piece of just like repurposing content, because so often I think it's so easy for creators and business owners to create for one platform, but not really be leveraging all these other areas that they can be using to market their business. For example, this podcast, right? Like you have a podcast, but if you're not blogging about it, how are you going to actually reach other people or be able to share it on, other platforms like social media? It's so important to have those things. And so I love that you think just like big picture, and also with your experience of working with, larger companies to smaller like photographer companies. I think that is just such a special thing that you've seen, that there's a need for writing quality content and blog posts and having a strategy within that. And so today we're going to be talking about cornerstone blogging and how it just plays a role to a larger website strategy. So for people who maybe have no idea what even cornerstone content is, do you mind giving us just an understanding of like, what is it and how does that play a role in blogging strategy?
Yeah, so a cornerstone blog is basically a ginormous blog. It should be significantly larger than any other blog on your website because it kind of acts as a main page on your website. So how you have your home page, you have your about page, you have your services page. A cornerstone blog should kind of act as one of those things, as one of the main places people go to learn about a broad topic. So this giant blog post should also link to a lot of other content on your website to give people a little bit more specific information about what you're talking about in the Cornerstone blog. So the goal of it is to kind of become a landing page for people to explore and then find other more specific pages on your website.
So do you mind maybe walking people through an example of what a Cornerstone blog would look like and what might be linked on there?
So typically Cornerstone blogs, the main topic is a little bit more broad. So for example, for a wedding photographer, you might write a blog about how to pick your wedding vendors. Like there are so many things you can talk about with that topic. You can talk about, all the vendors that you need to hire, your recommendations, questions to ask them when you're interviewing them. There's just so much you can go into, and that's kind of the goal of a Cornerstone blog, is to just make it really broad so that in those smaller topics that you're talking about within the blog, you can link to different content and resources that you have on your website.
I think that's great. So, I mean, I think what's really cool is what you're doing is you're putting together this bigger strategy. You're helping people become almost like an expert in these different categories and helping them have supporting content to do that. So for people who maybe do not have Cornerstone content, like what are some of the benefits and why do they need to have something like this versus just like a generic blog with no necessarily like Cornerstone content?
First of all, everyone should have a blog, just a general blog. There's so many benefits to having a blog for your SEO strategy and your website traffic. First off, it allows you to rank for more keywords because each page on your website should only be trying to rank for one keyword. So you can imagine your main pages can only do so much for you. You know, you have your homepage, your about page, your services, your contact. Let's say you have 6 main pages. That's only 6 keywords that you can rank for. Whereas a blog, you can post as many as you want to. So that's unlimited opportunities to rank for different keywords and help people find your business. So a Cornerstone blog, you know, it has a ton of information in it and then links, like I said, to other things that people might be interested in learning more about. So without an active blog, you won't have a lot to link to. So that's why the active blog of just regular blog posts plus the Cornerstone, you can see how they kind of work together. And the Cornerstone is kind of just like a summary of your main blog page.
I think that's so great. And so, I mean, there's so many different categories that people can go from. And I love how you were talking a little bit earlier about just like choosing something that's a lot broader that you can like link things to. So for people who are maybe trying to figure out for themselves, what do I need to choose for my Cornerstone content? Like, how do you pick a content idea? And then also like where to source ideas and do keyword research? Like where should someone start when trying to like build this out in their own blogging strategy?
Yeah. So some tips to choose a Cornerstone blog topic. So think of some big ideas related to your business. It could be related to your services. So if you're specifically an elopement photographer, maybe you're specifically talking about elopements in your Cornerstone blogs. So those big ideas, just make a big list of those. And then second step would be to keyword research to find a good keyword that you want to try to rank for that Cornerstone blog. So the best keywords are high in volume and low in competition, which are kind of a unicorn to find, but they are out there. It just means that a lot of people are searching for that term, but there's not a lot of competition, not a lot of people trying to rank for that keyword. So finding those kind of keywords to rank for that Cornerstone blog is the best thing that you can do for your overall blog strategy. Some of the topics that you've already written about in a blog might inspire a Cornerstone blog. So a wedding photographer who writes about engagement photos, let's say, then that could lead into a bigger topic of all the things that go into having your engagement photos taken. So picking your photographer, finding outfits, picking a location, the timeline of when you need to do those, how you can use your engagement photos. Like there's so much you can talk about with that. So some of those niche topics can also inspire some of the broad topics. So I hope you're starting to kind of see how like the broader Cornerstone topics kind of play a role in those specific, more specific blog topics. They kind of work together as part of like a larger website strategy.
I would love to like kind of circle back to something you said too with just like the keyword research, right? Because I think a lot of this structuring is going to play a big role in a bigger strategy. And so choosing the right keywords is obviously going to be key. See what I did there? To I'm sure finding success in this. So do you have any tools or ways to do that? I know you mentioned, you know, high volume and low competition. Like where does someone go to even find out if this is a high volume keyword and what the competition level is?
Yeah, my favorite tool to use is Ubersuggest. And in this tool, you can search for different terms that you might think are keywords. So maybe I'll type in timeline for a wedding. So I plug that in and it'll give me the stats for that keyword and also give me hundreds of other ideas that maybe I didn't even think of. And maybe in those ideas, there's something better like timeline, wedding timeline, let's say. So I didn't even think of that. Maybe that's something people are searching for and I didn't know that. So this tool is giving me an idea for a keyword and also helping me compare the volume and the competition to other keywords that maybe don't work for that topic, or there's just too high of competition. I have no chance of ranking for that. So kind of analyzing it in that way, and that's my favorite tool to use. I do use the paid version, but there is a free version where you can have a couple searches a day to do that keyword research and find a good keyword for your cornerstone blog.
So just kind of diving deeper into something like this. So if someone's like trying to write their first cornerstone blog, like how long should the cornerstone blog be? And then also, do you have any recommendations for figuring out how to necessarily organize it, or like choose your headings and kind of actually write the outline for something like this?
Yeah, a cornerstone blog is longer than your typical blog. So this kind of gets into the whole conversation around word count, which I don't really believe people should pay attention to. Instead, you should focus on just writing enough to thoroughly cover the topic and not really worry about word count too much, because whether it's 500 words or 3,000, just make sure it covers the topic thoroughly. So since you're writing a broad topic, it's going to be really long. So on average, most blogs are around 1,000 words, normal blogs. So a cornerstone blog should be at least double that, just because you're talking about so many different things, and they are huge blogs that cover a lot of different topics. And I do want to mention that it really shouldn't be hard to write this much content. If it is, then you might need to pick a little bit more of a broader topic, or consider just writing that topic as a normal blog post.
Totally. I think that makes sense, especially with just like the depth in which you're going to be going into these, especially with having linked blog posts to it and all of that. So that makes total sense. And then when choosing the actual like structure of it, are your headings going to be related to the other blog posts, or are those going to be completely separate? Like, how do you know what to cover in that actual content versus saving it for the other blog posts, if that makes sense?
Yeah, you can use your existing blog posts to kind of help you structure these cornerstone blogs and use those as headings. That's actually a really good strategy, because then it's obvious what blog you're going to link to in that section, right? It doesn't have to necessarily follow that structure, though. I like to use ChatGPT actually to help me outline blogs and give me some ideas of what I can talk about. Sometimes I just don't know all the different things that I can talk about, especially when writing for clients. You know, they're the expert in their industry. And so using AI to help me outline it at least and give me some ideas of what to talk about really helps me structure those cornerstone blogs. In terms of the structure of the blog, it should be very similar to a normal blog, where you have the intro paragraph, a heading, some text underneath that, another heading, some text underneath that, so on and so forth, all the way through the end. It just covers a lot more content than a normal blog does.
And then is there any sort of like frequency in which someone should be updating this? Like how do you maintain your cornerstone content, or do you have any recommendations around that?
Yeah. Since it acts as a main page of your website, or at least it should, I recommend reviewing it quarterly, because Google loves to see content being updated. So if you don't have time to publish a new blog in a week or a month or something, a really good strategy is to just go and update your existing content. So I recommend looking at the Cornerstone blogs quarterly, because they are a main page, and then looking at all your blogs every 6 to 12 months just to see if anything can be updated in those. So some things that you might want to look for are there any new areas that you can add new links? Do you need to update your images or videos within the blogs? Are there more content or big ideas that you can add to it? Do you have to update any statistics that you mentioned in the blogs? Can you update your call to actions in the blogs? So those are some ideas of like what to look for when you're updating. And it doesn't have to be anything like significant either. You can just add a couple new links and call it good, and Google will see that you updated it, and they'll be like, cool, I need to like look at this again and see if it is still relevant for where I'm showing it in search results.
A quick follow-up too on like updating these blogs. So I know sometimes there's like these features, at least if you use like Show It or WordPress, where it'll actually show when the blog was published, like the published date. And sometimes that's in the URL, things like that. Do you have any, this is kind of a random question, but do you have any recommendations on whether or not you should have your published date like in the URL, or if it should be anywhere on the actual blog post itself? Like, is that helpful? Is that something that does or doesn't matter?
For SEO, it doesn't matter because Google sees that you updated it regardless of if you put it in the copy. The only time that you would want to do it is if the blog is really timely. So if you're saying like 2024 or like spring blah blah blah, like you want to say like I updated it this month, like it is updated and it is in fact relevant. Or if you're mentioning like a lot of statistics or mentioning a trend or something, you want to say like as of, 2023 or blah blah blah. So that's the only time that you would need to add an updated date. And it is really for the readers. It's not really for Google. So most of the time I don't do that, but I can see a scenario that if you were writing a timely blog where you would want to add the updated date.
Eden, this is all so great. So I'm really curious, what are your recommendations on how many cornerstone blogs someone should have? And then within that, is there a certain number of like blog posts you should have within each like category of cornerstone content?
Yeah, so in terms of how many cornerstone blogs that you need, I would say anywhere from 2 to 5 cornerstone blogs. Since they are since they should be main pages on your website, you don't need that many. And you don't need to post as consistently as you do with a normal blog post. You don't have to write all the time about cornerstone content. Just 2 to 5 really good pieces of cornerstone content is all that you need, because it gives Google a pretty good idea of the main things that you do if you pick those broad topics like I was talking about before. And once you have that many cornerstone blogs, you can continue updating them and only add new ones if you find a really good topic to write about, or maybe you add a new service and you want to write something about that. Those are really the only times that you would need to add more cornerstone content, but it'd be more worth your while to update what you already have. In terms of how many links you should have in the cornerstone blog, I say as many as what makes sense. Wherever you can add links that make sense within the content, you should do that. It won't hurt you to have a lot of links unless they don't make sense or they link to something that is irrelevant. But if you're structuring your cornerstone blog to align with some other blogs that you've already written, you won't have that issue.
So is there anything specifically when setting this up that's going to help Google know that this is your cornerstone content? Like, will Google automatically know that it's cornerstone, or is there anything you need to do to indicate that specifically?
In WordPress, you can mark it as a cornerstone blog. However, I don't believe Squarespace allows you to do that, and it's not the end of the world. Like, if you don't mark it as cornerstone, it's okay, because it does stand out from the rest of your blog content. It should be posted as a regular blog. You don't need to add it to like your main navigation or anything. It should just be within your blog content, and you structure it as a normal blog, like I was saying before, with headers and text and images or videos if you do that. But in terms of like telling Google that it's cornerstone, you don't really need to do anything special. It just kind of knows because it does stand out from the rest of your content, and it is just like a huge piece of content basically.
Totally. And then for Show It specifically, like you'd be creating this in WordPress, correct? You wouldn't be doing this on your actual website?
That is correct, yes. So whatever platform that you use to blog, you would just post the cornerstone blog there. A lot of times people who have Show It also use WordPress for their blogging. So you would post it in WordPress. Or if you're using Squarespace, you'd post it within the main blog on your Squarespace site.
Awesome. Man, that's so good. That's so good. There's so many things that go into this. And so I feel like you've just like really shared a lot. And so like just kind of going back to like the basics of like, for people who are wondering like why they need this or how this will impact them, like what would you say are like the number one reasons why people should make sure that they're setting this up, and like how is it going to benefit them when it comes to like SEO and just their overall business strategy?
Yeah, it really comes down to cornerstone blogs help drive qualified traffic to your website. So the more specific that you can be within the main topics of that broad topic, the more Google will understand your content and be able to show it to the right people. So I kind of view it as you're taking your users on a journey of your website through this Cornerstone blog from all the links that you include within it. So it provides a better user experience because everything that they could possibly need to know about this topic and more is right there for them. They have a little snippet of the content and then a link to find out more about it. So that's kind of another thing to think about when you're writing this blog is what might they want to learn more about while reading your Cornerstone blog. So that's kind of an extra tip, I guess, of how to write your blog and like some things that you can think about when you are structuring it.
And I love that because at the end of the day, like the whole point of all of this isn't to just do some sort of hack to try to make it on the front page of Google and X, Y, and Z. Like it's ultimately serving a purpose. And that's kind of what Google's job is to make sure they're delivering the best content to the people as they're searching and ensuring that, you know, what serves the user intent gets seen. And so if you're kind of creating with the end user in mind and making sure that it's really like easy for them to navigate and easy for them to find, like all the topics and everything within it are all super relevant, like that's going to be so important. So I love that you just like shared all of this today, and it's been so great learning from you. And so for just people who are maybe feeling a little overwhelmed and not quite sure like where to start, what are some things that they can do to start moving the needle in their business with Cornerstone content? Like where should they start? What are some things that they can take action on today?
Yeah, I know it kind of sounds like a lot, but as long as you are posting to a blog consistently, and that means whatever that looks like to you, it could be weekly, it could be monthly, it could be quarterly, as long as you're consistent to posting to your blog, that is a great place to start. And once you start posting consistently, you can kind of shape your Cornerstone content to what you already have. Another thing is to just spend some time learning how to research those keywords. Even if you aren't doing it for anything specific, you're just trying to learn, I encourage you to try out Ubersuggest and just kind of see what the tool can do for you with your keyword research, and just starting to kind of learn what to look for with those keywords. You'll start to see competition is super high for some of these ones, but this niche keyword, I could probably rank for that. So maybe that'll inspire some new blog topics for you too. But I encourage you to spend some time learning how to find some good keywords for your blogs, and for maybe your website needs a refresh too with keyword research. So that's just a really fundamental place to start.
It's all so good. So good. And I always recommend, take baby steps. Don't try to go through and write all these 2,000 word plus like Cornerstone content all in one day. Like that, this takes time, it takes strategy, and you really want to make sure that you are ranking for the right words for you and like being really intentional about this, because it is ultimately setting up a lot of structure in your website. So you really want to be intentional about it. But seriously, Eden, thank you so much for everything you shared today. And for people who want to learn more from you or potentially work with you, like where can they find you and what types of things do you offer?
Yeah, thank you so much. You can find me at mavenmadecopy.com or mavenmadecopy on Instagram. I have a freebie that I will send you and your listeners. It's a template that I use for myself and my clients to keep all of our blogging efforts organized, and I include little tips along the way for writing and for SEO. So I will send you that link, and it's on my website too, where you can also learn about my blog writing and SEO services.
I love it. Thank you so much. We'll got that all linked below. So everyone go check out Eden and her work. She's got so much knowledge to share with you guys, as she did already today. So go download her guides, go check her out. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. If you found this podcast helpful or insightful, we would absolutely be honored if you could take a moment to leave us a review on whichever platform you're listening on. If you have any friends who you think would benefit from this podcast, please share it with them. And lastly, we absolutely love connecting with you all on social media. You can find us using the links below in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.